My journey began with what looked like small animals on Mars, and has brought me now to question the structure of the entire solar system and the origins of life on Earth. In this episode, I wish to bring my earlier work into focus. I can offer explanations for several anomalies and mysteries relating to NASA's version of space exploration, including why we have not been back to the Moon and why we do not have a base there as a testing facility for the planned Mars mission. I offer an explanation for the mysterious bright spots that appear and disappear on the Moon that have baffled astronomers for generations, and for the clouds that have been seen to occasionally appear above the Moon. I can suggest why Japanese researchers are finding biogenic oxygen on the Moon, and why the astronauts' footprints on our Moon look wet and squishy. I also feel that I can offer an alternative explanation to the so-called unnatural formations on the Moon and Mars that people are interpreting as evidence of alien bases and ancient civilizations. A lot to do in 20 minutes, so let's get started. I begin with something beautiful. It starts life crawling on the mud at the bottom of a pond, and wakes up one day to be one of the most sophisticated flying creatures on Earth. Cold, wet mud and murky water is replaced with a glittering world of blues and greens, rich in oxygen and opportunity and wonder. It is a reality for this insect, and a metaphor, I hope, for us. It all begins here. This is the basic form of the orbiform, or pod, or as I now believe, the stromatolite. It takes basic elements from the environment, grows, it clones itself, it releases atmospheric gases and possibly water. It is a beautifully simple, geologically slow-acting chemical factory. It is the original source of oxygen on Earth. One of these can last for thousands, if not millions of years. If it has to wait 100 years for a single hydrogen atom to turn up, then so be it. I want to begin with a drawing of these bioforming wonders and segue them into a view from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Stromatolites in their megabillions, cloning and piling up to form massive landscape features. The older individuals can be meters in diameter and can be seen from space. The smallest are like grains of dust and sand, piling up in dune formations in the winds of Mars. Here are the banded rock formations of Western Australia, showing the earliest life activity we know of. The red bands are made of iron oxide, where oxygen-excreting entities released oxygen into iron-rich water to create rust. The geologist is pointing at tiny and still active stromatolites, but he only refers to the white layers. There is much debate about their true nature. It is suspected that they are connected to life on Earth, but no one is quite sure how and why. Geologists and biologists have not yet realized that the stromatolites are ubiquitous across the solar system. When they see this, planetary and life sciences will be revolutionized. I contend that there is an elite that already does know this and is sitting on the knowledge. But all of that is for another day. But do look up COSPAR and similar things where committees fret about what to tell us. The Earth, like every other body in our solar system, was once encrusted with stromatolites. You yourself can find evidence of them, although they are now mostly incorporated into the remains of the geological maelstroms and upsets of early Earth. Here are some active stromatolites in Shark Bay, Australia. These examples are estimated to be thousands of years old. They can tolerate the extreme salinity of this region. They are found in association with microbiological plants that also tolerate the extreme conditions. There is some speculation about whether they are animal or mineral entities. I would say they are life, but not as we know it. I am proposing that the solar system was seeded at its very beginning. It is possible that the stromatolites not only provide some environmental conditions necessary for life, but also perhaps they bring other essential building blocks to initiate life. If stromatolites carry a template for life, it is possible that this template is available to other solar systems in our galaxy, perhaps across our galaxy, perhaps many galaxies all carry this template. I was using this picture of an unusual plant which I took on Chesil Beach in Dorset as a computer desktop. While researching the pod phenomenon, I suddenly noticed these. We need to re-evaluate geology. We need to look again at magma, its contents, and the impact of magma on a thick crust of stromatolites during the early days of this planet. I now look at stones on the beach with a new eye. Here is a stone I recently picked up. The classic Stromatolite pattern is present. I have discovered that there are collectors of stromatolite formations, and here are a couple of examples I found online. Their presence in rocks is a worldwide phenomenon. In a previous show I gave many examples of their occurrence in most meteorites. And now a trip to the moon. I've made the earlier shows about Mars. It has been an interesting journey. I was following the ancient archaeology and remote viewing and alien presence material on YouTube and so on. As I followed up the material using NASA's images, I began to see that some odd things were recurring in picture after picture. In particular, bright white spherical objects with a black circular patch. It gradually became clear that all of the structures on Mars were made of these entities. Sand, rocks, mesas, uplands. The entities start small and get bigger. Now it's clear that these stromatolites cover everything out there in our solar system. But look at where the dust on the surface is disturbed. A layer of shining white is revealed. Look closer and it resolves into tiny white spheres, each with a black dot. An astronaut drew an archetype on an archetype. Now some geologists are claiming that early volcanism has coated the moon with lava basalts. So look carefully at this image from Apollo 12. No sign of magma flows and olivine basalts or vesicular basalts. Just small stromatolites and their spores and some dust perhaps. Now we see where the footprint peters out to reveal a translucent layer. Look into this layer and you will see stromatolites. Are we supposed to be too stupid to notice this? Why is everybody just making stuff up? You can see the moon rocks that were brought back, and we'll talk about those another time. But apparently no single astronaut picked up any of the white shiny spheres. What is more, there are no clear individual photographs of the big white spherical objects visible in the landscape. In other words, NASA does not want us to know that the moon is useless for mining and useless for setting up any kind of base. More on that later. It is a tiny world in the process of being terraformed. I prefer the term bioformed. NASA had no need to keep returning to the moon. It is uniform in its appearance and composition. I suspect the famous missile strike on the moon had little to do with finding water and more to do with determining just how deep the stromatolite layer might be. The moon is bright in our sky because below a dusty, greyish-looking surface is a gleaming crust of pure, clean, snowy white, maturing stromatolites. perhaps 30 kilometres or more deep. The Moon has no magnetosphere. Perhaps it is entirely made of stromatolites. When we look at the many other small moons of the solar system, this seems quite possible, or even likely for many of them. Mars reflects sunlight brightly for the same reason as our Moon, and the moons of Jupiter, and the rest. It has an orange colour because the oxygen manufactured by the stromatolites reacts with iron atoms to create rust. I can't help returning to this Apollo 12 scene. The footprints have removed a thin layer of material to reveal a semi-transparent skin. There appear to be stromatolites encapsulated. We seriously need some real scientific investigation here. I am sure the stromatolites secrete something sticky to hold the structure together. I think their ability to form a mass is crucial to the bioforming functions. To trap those gases for as long as possible, perhaps. And now to the surface structures of the Moon. It's peppered with depressions and bumps of various sizes. We have always been led to believe that its appearance is the result of millions of meteor impacts. But I think something different is going on. While there are some impact craters with a classic impact profile, there are also a great number of holes that look much more like sinkholes. Here is a diagram cross-section of the Moon's crust to show what I mean. The stromatolite crust of many tens or hundreds of kilometres is slowly releasing gases, including what we recognise as biogenic oxygen. These gas accumulations form large trapped and pressurised bubbles in the crust. As they slowly rise, perhaps over millennia, they push up the surface, and eventually they burst through the surface and escape. There is seismic disturbance at the violence of some of these events. This causes a sinkhole and the release of a gas cloud. Really look at these holes, clean edges with slanting debris pile of gleaming white. You can see the thin grey covering and what lies below. The gas freezing and dispersing can be visible from Earth-based telescopes. The sudden disturbance exposes a great area of white gleaming stromatolites, and astronomers on Earth look on with bafflement at a new bright spot, while alien hunters hope they are seeing a new lunar base switching on. Most of humanity remains oblivious. The Moon, unlike the Earth and Mars, is unable to hold on to the gases to develop an atmosphere, and the gas molecules are stripped away. The unstable and unpredictable nature of the surface of the Moon makes it dangerous. A moon base could be swallowed up at any time. I think this has been kept secret, perhaps so that other space agencies around the world would waste time and resources finding all of this out for themselves. Anyway, this hypothesis provides a motive for cancelling the last 3 planned lunar excursions. It may also provide a motive for the possible faking of some of the later moon missions. It also explains why there is no one there now doing the groundwork for missions to Mars. Recently, geologists who specialise in volcanism are claiming that these holes prove that lava tunnels lie below the surface. In Iceland, similar holes appear when part of the surface falls into a lava tunnel. Working backwards from this, they see proof of volcanic activity in the Moon's history. But the problem is that their familiar sinkholes are not full of gleaming stromatolites. The day of the stromatolites on planet Earth is pretty much over, and yet still some hang on in some quiet corners of the world, and it's comforting to think that should they be needed again, they're always there to get us from something like this to something like this. Well, now I've covered everything that I set out to at the beginning of this presentation, except for a discussion of ancient Martian civilizations and artifacts on Mars and the Moon. I will save that for the next presentation, and I will also be looking at Ganymede, Callisto and Europa, 3 of the Jovian moons. I would like to thank everybody and everything that has made this presentation possible. Thank you ever so much if you have watched this presentation, and especially if you've stuck with it all the way through. Till next time then, goodbye.